There it is. And thanks everyone for coming to the December community chat. We're calling this Rewind 2024. It's part of a whole bunch of things we're doing this month, looking back at the year, trying to celebrate the work of the good folks doing the good stuff in higher ed in 2024. And so for this community chat, we invited a bunch of people that we've talked with over the year on Reclaim TV. And of course, that we're excited to see back. But we really just wanted to talk about, sharing highs and lows of 2024, sharing projects that we've been working on, and making space for that type of reflection in a group here. So, so we're really delighted you could join us. So with that in mind, I mean, there's it's been obviously there a big year in a lot of ways for all kinds of different technologies and acronyms. I'll avoid being the first on the call to mention things like that. But I wanted to kind of kick things off, and I wanted to maybe actually have Pilot kick things off and talk about your highs and lows of 2024. And we're gonna sorry, putting you on the spot, Pilot, but we're gonna start the discussion. So, what have been your highs and lows of this year in EdTech and at Reclaim?
I wasn't informed of this ahead of time, and I think
Not
that's
at all.
rude. Okay. Highs and lows of EdTech in the past year. The high for me really was, maybe it's recency bias, but getting to go to Open Ed 24 and meeting a ton of cool people and hearing a lot about the work that they're doing. It was a really amazing event, and it was also cool to just get to hang out with you, Taylor, in person. We went to a French fry restaurant together, which was interesting.
You might think we don't know what poutine is, but it wasn't just poutine.
I would argue that it just wasn't poutine. That's it.
It wasn't really.
There were so many amazing talks at Open Ed 24 that I got to go to, and so many that I didn't get to go to that were recorded and I'm still catching up on. But yeah. I think that was kind of my highlight for EdTech for the year. And then also the summer camp is the problem. So it is recency bias. Both of those were amazing. The summer camp was really great, just as far as unique formats and ideas and ways of approaching different topics. It's been a really good year for me, EdTech wise. So now I'm struggling to think of lowlights.
And it's okay.
Even the WordPress drama stuff has been fascinating to me from a onlooker perspective. So
yeah, I would say that would be a particular low light. I would echo that for me. And we did chat about, we had a community chat kind of focused on the WordPress drama. There's been more developments since then, like court orders to roll back some of the what I would describe as nonsense, but that's been kind of a weird muddying force, I would say, in our neck of the woods at Reclaim. That has been kind of a low light for me. But knowing that 2024 was a good EdTech year for someone was reason enough to join today. Thanks, Brian.
Doommonger.
Pass the torch there, Pilot, or Taylor.
Do I have to pick? I thought Taylor was going to just call on
everybody. We're popcorning
everybody.
This. You get to pass the torch.
Fantastic. Taylor, you.
Okay.
This is revenge.
I'll be quick because I started, but I would say my highlight of the year was definitely summer camp. I loved Open Ed 24 too, but it was really cool to to kind of be part of the team that pulled off this weird and unique professional development experience. And then it was even cooler to see, from my perspective, to see Alan build on that for OE Global. So that, I think radio was the highlight, was my EdTech highlight of 2024 personally. Low light, I already mentioned, WordPress stuff. It's been okay. Honestly, it doesn't affect me that much, and it doesn't really affect what the work we're doing that much. WordPress is still WordPress. But that has been probably my least favorite thing happening this year. And I'll popcorn it over. Actually, Alan, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Oh, Taylor, that's not what we talked about. I like their dogs and cats. That's what I'll say. I'll even say, like, I want to dial back to, I got to go to OER 24 in Cork, and it was kind of there, the conversations with Marin and Meredith, who were there. And of course, it's a good gathering that kind of rekindled my interest in kind of the radio. And I didn't get to do much summer camp because I was traveling. So maybe that's a low light. But yeah, I was really inspired to try it. And I really didn't manage it very well. And it was kind of experimental at the OE Global Conference. I don't think my colleagues really understood what I was doing, even though I explained it many times. And so people were intrigued, but it was a little bit more like the old days, Jim, like pirate radio in a conference where I just streamed a session and did a couple impromptu things. But learned a lot. Taylor was very helpful, and I figured out some things. I haven't done much in AzureCast, and figuring out how to get some program blocks was kind of special. And I would really like. I mean, your organization for the summer camp was really top notch. I kind of just did it seat of my pants, but it was fun to do. Low. I don't know what to say. Low. It's just kind of this feeling of fragmentation and the low energy, and I'm just not finding my spark as much. And the only thing that helps Jim is blogging, really, which again, haven't done enough of, but I always feel better when I blog. And so I'm thinking of just, not spending as much time in the scroll space, although I still do, but I don't really have an interest in being in every new space that's popping out. And I don't know, I'm just kind of tired. I think there's not much spark in EdTech. I'm, it usually comes, but I just don't know where it is anymore. But the spark usually comes from, like, every day I still come across weird and fun little niche shit and things out there on the internet that people are doing. And I think the saving grace is that individually, and often people who have still bother to like have domains and care about, making and growing their own stuff. I think there's a lot more doing it than maybe we take granted for. It's just harder to find. Oh, I got to call on somebody. Geez. Oh, there's so many fun people. I got to call. No, I'll call it Dave Cormier because he just popped in there, and I like sticking it to Dave. Hey, Dave.
The stick it to Dave plan. That's always a good one.
It's been my shtick for a long time, Dave.
Hi, everybody. Okay. I'm just going to take my food off the stove here. Hold on a second. So my highlight is a moment. I think Anne-Marie's heard the story. It's a moment from the class I was teaching in March, teaching Bachelor of Education students. I'd given them a copy of a 1977 New York Times article about how the television was killing classrooms. Kids these days, they just can't handle anymore. All they do is talk about TV. They stay up too late. They can't talk to each other. They don't play anymore. This is the capstone article for my class on EdTech. And I'm hoping that the light bulb is going to go on. Like, I'm hoping it's going to get there. So Isabella is sitting. She's about 3 seats in. About 3 minutes into reading, she gives me one of these. I'm like, Isabella, have a hard time getting through that article? She's like, TLDR, I get the point. I'm like, my dude, what do you want to teach? And she goes, grade 5 students. And I'm like, do you want your grade 5 students to be able to read for longer than that? And she goes, and she just stops. And like the whole, like it all happens in her head. And she's like, oh my God, I can't read anymore. And then the person next to her goes, I don't even watch the first 30 minutes of movies anymore. I can't stand the exposition. And it starts pinging around the room as everybody's doing these deep personal declarations of how they can't pay attention to anything. And then one student, like right in the front, her hand goes like this. I've never seen her raise her hand before. She just talks, but she raised her hand like tentatively and goes, oh my God, is this what this whole course has been about? And I'm like, yes, this is what the whole course has been about. Thank you for figuring it out on the last day. Yes, things are changing. All these things matter, but it's not about the buttons and it's not about this. It's about how we change as a culture. Like this is a deeply cultural moment that we're stuck in right now. I also have a cat that just climbed the screen on my window. So I'm just going to have to grab that just a second. This is Clarence. He's a very bad boy, but he also happens to be adorable. So that's my favorite edtech moment from 2024. My worst moments of 2024 are more of a sequence of moments. My march of sadness as I go from department to department. In my now ex job, for those of you who know, going to work with the Brian in the new year. Yeah, it's gonna be good times. It's just the march of sadness and walking into department after department and realizing that on AI and realizing that the conversation that they need to have about what learning is for is the one that they've never really had. And that's me out. I'm gonna pick my my man Brian because we're gonna be doing this tag team show all next year.
I'm looking better at 2025, knowing you're coming, Dave, honestly. And I'm not just saying that. It's been a real wave of energy through my colleagues too. Before you've even come, you've made things better. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, 2024, why I was being a little doomy in the comments. I mean, I just felt the whole year was just playing defense a lot of the time, the encroachment of the cloud. And I wouldn't get into what AI has done because that's a mixed bag. You can at least find some positives there. But just it's going to certain events, like there's an event called BCNet, which is like a gathering of all the IT people in the region, and they don't, I realize they don't like tech. Like they don't want to do it. They want Microsoft to run it and they want to be a service desk. And and that seems to be where the discourse is. That seems to be what higher ed wants of them. This group all knows their rowdy renegade profs in their faculties because that's who we tend to serve. And I know those people too, but those people are on the edges mostly. But if I am going to be truly honest, it's Dave's arrival is well timed because it's not the only reason for optimism, honestly, in 2025. I actually do have a leader who sees value in open pedagogy and the open web. And even in an environment where budget cuts are happening everywhere, I got a couple new positions coming, and I have about an 80% chance of luring my best WordPress designer back onto my team, who I lost this year, and she was a huge loss. And got this modest ministry grant, which will include a reclaim pilot to try to build a new, like a next wave online environment and piloting that, and hopefully working with a number of people on this call on that. So I just hope I'm up to it. I feel like this last year of playing defense and kind of spending a lot more time on admin and stuff like that has taken something out of me. I don't have the spring in my step that I had, 3 or 4 years ago. So I hope I can recover some of that enthusiasm. Maybe the blog will help there. So that's where I'm at. And since I kind of alluded to a project in 2025 with the ministry, I'm going to tag over to Anne-Marie because we never would have gotten that grant if it wasn't for her.
I feel like some kind of evil puppet master because I think, without revealing too much, I had a hand in Dave's arrival at TRU as well, because I'm also working for TRU quietly as a contractor with Brian's boss, who I agree sees a lot of value. I wouldn't be working with her if I didn't think she's got some good ideas. My high of 2024 probably same as Alan's OER24 in Ireland. There's stuff on my social feeds of many, many selfies with many, many people I just hadn't seen in a long time. And I think we were all doing that, but I got to see Shahira, I got to see Catherine Cronin, I got to see Alan, I got to see Maren and Meredith. I think Maren posted something this morning even of Meredith and her and I having lunch in Cork, and just so much good FaceTime with good people. Bonnie, Dave's partner, was there as well. And yeah, it was just a total... Honestly, the sessions were great, but even if the sessions hadn't been great, just spending good time with good people and feeling connected to that community again was just, I hadn't realised how much I wanted it and needed it. And that was a huge shot of energy. The other thing, and not unlike some of Dave's experiences, the other thing I've really enjoyed this year was teaching. I'm now adjunct faculty at Royal Roads University on the Masters in Learning and Technology. Some of you know Erwin de Vries, who sadly passed away this year. That's a sucky bit in open education this year for a number on this call. But Brenna Clark-Gray and myself took over his teaching at Royal Roads, and the students that we were working with, I mean, the opportunity to teach with Brenna was also a big shot in the arm. There is literally nobody else on the planet I would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to run a seminar session with. But working with those students was a real shot of energy that I didn't know I needed as well. And the course we teach is critical inquiry into contemporary issues in open education or educational technology. So it is basically a deep dive into all of the critical edtech stuff that I think a lot of us love on this call, and that Brenna and I particularly wallow in. And I kind of regret that every single one of them chose AI. I mean, it was sort of obvious that they were going to as a technology, and it's so much in our faces. And I wish they'd mixed it up a little bit, because I think there's more interesting stuff to talk about than AI. But on the other hand, they all brought different. They were all looking at different aspects of it. So looking at disability, accessibility, personalized learning, the kind of economics of it. One person was looking at it in the context of trades education. So that was a huge shot of energy. The other big, I mean, this was an offshoot from OER24. Tom Farrelly was one of the people there. Munster were hosting. I then went to, completely separately, went to a validation of prior learning conference in Kilkenny in Ireland later in the year. And randomly, there's Tom Farrelly again, because he got a free ticket to it. So I had the opportunity to introduce Tom to Tanis Morgan, one of Brian and I's compatriots on the Open ETC. And the end result of all of this is that I'm going to host Tom and his wife Carmel in Vancouver next year. And I'm not entirely sure that my liver is going to recover from that. So it's nice to know you all. But that, I think, is going to be a total riot. So this year's been a lot of just people connections around EdTech that have given me energy. The downsides, I mean, I am kind of fed up of talking about AI, and a chunk of the work I've done this year in the AI space, because I'm not in a university full time, apart from the teaching stuff and my contracting work, has been with the open source initiative. We're looking at a definition of open source AI, and I've had my fair share of trolling on that. I've gotten to see some of the grotty sides of the internet again. So that has been super interesting work and super thoughtful work, but also, like, I've not enjoyed some of the, and I don't talk publicly about it too much, but I've not enjoyed some of the vitriol that's come with that. But as Brian said, like, next year in the Open ETC and the grant that we got from the ministry to do something there, there's interesting projects on the horizon with that stuff, and that's keeping me excited. I'm probably talking far too much, so I'm going to stop my yap. I'm going to pass over to Meredith, since I saw that lovely photo of us this morning having lunch together, and it was a delight to see you.
So my year was great as well. I was gonna say the workshop for the fall that we ran, and honestly, I think we ran two, spring and fall, for some of the newer administrators at for Domain of One's Own and managed hosting at Reclaim. Um, Travel to Cork was so fun. Getting to talk about all the fun stuff that Reclaim's been doing. And then in end of July into August, Jim and I went to Washington, D.C. for work WP Campus and DH 2024. And that was a really cool experience to get to see a little more into the digital humanities side of edtech. I'm normally behind the screen, more in the technical side of making things run. So getting to see kind of more of the educational side with digital humanities was super fun. On that side, probably downside for me is the monotony of working from home. I think I've kind of hit a wall with getting used to working from home, even though that's been a thing for years. So just trying to find a way to kind of cope with that, like moving my desk space around or switching up the way I work in that way. But yeah, otherwise it's been super fun. I am gonna pass it off to Jim. He's got his camera on, and I'll pass it to anybody else too if they want to jump in, kind of open it up.
Yeah, thanks, Meredith. I'll be quick. A highlight is creating a creep show diorama on the streets of Trento, Italy. That has been a real highlight. Low light was it was a really tough start to the year. Just kind of got for all sorts of different reasons, but that got started. But I kind of, to your point, Meredith, getting out of my basement, which Brian Mathers warned me, it's a dangerous thing to work in your basement for years because it starts to close in and maybe it affects your brain and your depression. So getting my own space outside and having a space that I've been building and designing to get my mind off of everything else has been great. And it's also been great for the blog because I've been blogging about stuff that's probably completely irrelevant to everybody, but feels great for me. So that's been fun. Corinne, I'm sending it to you.
Okay. There we go. I guess my highlight is I got two. I'm going to go with two. The DH 2024, because I wanted to go to that conference for years. I was supposed to go in 2020, but we all know how 2020 went. So it was exciting to finally be able to go and then to talk to you, Jim. And that's kind of what led me here in the first place. So that was fun. And then I think my other one is a little selfish, but I received continued appointment, which is basically tenure for libraries here at Virginia Tech. So that was a big deal. So I'm going to add that as a high point. I think my low point is just, I think a lot of you all have said this, a lot of the little tiny things that just build up over time and get to you and wear you out. So nothing major, nothing I can really think of, but it's just a lot of those little small things. And I've lost track of who's gone already. So
You want me to push it to somebody?
yes, please.
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you.
Stephen, I want to hear from you. If you're in some place where you can talk, if not, you can pass the baton. All right, he may not be. So MBS, I know what your highlight has to be, just so you know.
My highlight is thank you, Jim, is resurrecting Dr. Oblivion, right?
I think Steven's having some issues with Mike.
Oh, yeah, just for those
Oh,
of you
wait,
who
I'll
don't
stop.
know, I own a bike shop called Joe Mama's in downtown Ottawa. And yeah, a lot of my highlights for the year were non-work highlights, as befits my advanced stage. More seriously, AI has been fun, but for me, the big highlight has been social media, especially decentralized social media, getting in to learn the guts of Mastodon and Blue Sky, seeing how they're put together, how they work. You realize it's actually snowing outside now. And I've had time and space over, I don't know, the last few months to work on a project. Normally when I do a project, I show everybody what I've done too soon. This time I decided to follow NRC rules. So they get to have a look at it first, and then I show everybody else in the world. It totally goes against the way I like to do things, but in this case, what it's done is forced me to keep working on the project while I wait for the bureaucracy to do its thing, with the result that once I finally show something, it's going to be way more complete than other stuff that I've done in the past. So I'm really enthusiastic about it. So beginning of 2025, I hope to have something really interesting to show to people. That really does speak to what I think is the next generation of edtech anyways. Distributed, open, free, personal, all of that. That's been my highlight for the years, just having the time, the space, and the capacity to work on that. And even if it's a big flop, and it might be, who cares? It's been a blast. I've had a ton of fun. The downside, or the disappointment for the year, has been the government work from office rules. I was at my happiest when I was working from home 5 days a week, because it meant I had enough time to do all the stuff that I wanted to do. Now with this whole, we're required this year to be in the office 3 days a week, which from my perspective is ridiculous, because I'm actually more lonely in my office than I am at home. And I have better tech at home. In the office, I have to rely on what my employers can provide, which isn't that great. But really, I mean, like, I work in this office in this generally silent building where there's virtually no social interaction, and that's no fun at all. And I have to drive half an hour to get to it. So yeah, work from office mandate's my low point for the year. But I'm hanging in there, and at least, I get to come downtown from time to time and talk about bicycles and fun things like that.
Awesome.
That's me. And I don't know who's gone either. Tom, has Tom gone?
He hasn't, but I'm going to pass it to MBS because he was talking first, and then it will go to Tom. So you'll be one delayed.
All right.
If you're speaking, I can't hear you.
All right. Don't worry about it. I think everybody else did.
All right. Well, my highlight, I have a couple. One is the faster one. It was the resurrection of Dr. Oblivion at the start of the new year for the DS-106 AI course that was taught out of the University of Mary Washington.
Well, I'm done, so I can't hear anyone anymore. I wonder why.
I'm not sure if I can be heard. Am I being heard? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. So it was a project basically that was playing with, it was an edtech instigator, I think, that I am in this room, or / making art. I built a bot based on questions about AI and educational technology, but also it basically fed back you tapes of audio. So it was a little uncanny valley, and I think some of the responses from the students were quite interesting, and was pretty interesting. And so that's one highlight. The other one actually is a very recent one, which is I started a podcast with Jim called the Family Pictures Podcast, which has been a lot of fun so far, and just talking about movies and family context in film, and finding ways to put yourself out there is always on a regular basis where you're comfortable, I think, is always enjoyable. On the low light side is I still struggle with, I think my college is still struggling post-pandemic, and our registration numbers are going down, and we're working hard to rebuild them. But teaching to classrooms that are half empty, and students that are online, but their cameras are always closed, and struggling, and always doing other things at the same time, is something I'm still working on. But yeah, but that's it. But thank you for having me.
Thanks. And I think we'll have Tom go next if you're able to.
Sure. I didn't realize this was participatory. That's what
we got to keep you on your toes.
That's right. I guess highlights. I mean, oddly enough, I'm enjoying the AI stuff in terms of some of the weirder things, and just I think the depth, breadth, and complexity of all of it. Everything from weird ways it recognizes your face and then claims to read your emotions. Apparently, I am always confused, no matter how neutral I try and make my face, and that's like dystopian in one way and funny in another. So I mean, like, it is, and I'm messing with it, and it's kind of amusing me. And I'm also working with state level kind of districts in Virginia around the K-12 kind of approach to this and what they need to be worried about and how they're setting the foundational stuff. And that's been kind of fun because I've been away from K-12 for some time, but to get back and talk to people about that side of things has been interesting, and just to see, just how they're thinking about it and what I think they need to be worried about ahead of time, hopefully save somebody from a lot of drama and pain. And then trying to do some of the same stuff with Middlebury. So that's been kind of entertaining, kind of disappointing, and mixtures. So I'm just going to focus on the amusing parts. Disappointing thing, I think, as usual, we want a polarized discussion with as much hyperbole as possible. And we won't entertain nuance, degrees, and actually figuring out what any of these words mean. So I don't see that cycle going away ever. And so I don't know how we'll ever make any sort of progress, because it's like the dumbest way to talk about stuff I can imagine. So yeah, that's where I'm disappointed in our culture and use of language. And with that, I will pass it to Paul, because he has on the coolest sunglasses.
Am I muted, I think?
Good now.
Yeah. So what are we talking about here? So my highlights of the day are: I got my eyes fixed, hence the sunglasses, and I am still medicated, so why not drop in? Yeah, highlights of the year, I believe, was Dr. Oblivion, AI 106, working with Jim, and all the things that the students made out of it. I wasn't sure how that would go, and they came up with a lot of surprises, and it made the whole class a lot of fun.
Awesome. You don't have any low lights because you're too heavily medicated, right? Like, everything's pretty good for you right now.
Yeah. Low lights is not being able to see anything.
I want to, Paul, I know you came in a little late, so I'm going to take the reins a bit and just point it to Jason. Jason is our support specialist here at Reclaim. He's awesome. He's coming to you from Texas. And Jason, you got anything to share? Tell me you're not there, Jason. Everything's riding on this, Jason. Jason's
on frontline right now, so he might be trying to multitask, solve tickets.
Oh my God, Jason, this is your big stepping out. Look what you did to me. Flog or die. Anyway, I'm putting it back to you, Taylor, because this could get ugly quick.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Mark. Mark Corbett Wilson. I'm sorry. There you go.
I even have a camera. Does it work? Hey, what do you know? Hi, everybody. I'm part of the Reclaim community, I guess. I know some of y'all.
You're here, so you are.
I had a lot of highlights, actually. I was the third person to get the Canadian Certificate in Digital Humanities. A year ago. So I counted as this year. Based on my work at the University of Victoria and at the University of Mary Washington and BC campus. Of course, people with real degrees don't recognize it, but it makes me happy. And I'm old, so, whatever. My Western Institute for Social Research, where I volunteered for 7 years, got accredited this year. It's a small Berkeley graduate institute. That will be 50 years old next May Day. They picked May Day as their start day back in 75. And because they got accredited, they give me a stipend. So it almost covers my reclaim bill. So that's good. And then I took a dive this year into federated media. So I've been looking at, like Stephen, Mastodon and Blue Sky. Of course, he's probably looking at the underlying code. I'm just trying to figure out how to use it. But based on Pilot and Taylor's class, I set up a Ghost account and Castapod and PixelFed and all that good stuff. And so I'm starting to use that. And then last week, Jim challenged us all blog or die. So I've been blogging. And Jim, I afterwards I asked Maren, did you know what Jim was doing when he went? And she went, no, I don't know what that is. And I said, I didn't think so. So I did a little blog post for you, Jim, about that Western move. And I dropped the link in the chat. So I had a good year. But because of higher education, as we all know what's going on there, I'm moving into third space. So I'm taking my digital storytelling and my technology to galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, because higher ed doesn't want an old white guy. So it's all good. Oh, I should pick somebody. Who hasn't spoken?
Jason would be the final
Jason,
one.
we could try Jason again, see if we fix that ticket I submitted to distract him.
He's having audio issues, so I'm actually I won't joke here. But look, we did a nice round robin of everybody in the room. And that's great. I want to thank, I've talked to many people on Reclaim TV, DS106 Summer. There were so many great events at the summer event. So many folks here were part of them. So special thanks for making that event as great. And I want to do another one. It's really one of the benefits of having Maren, who couldn't make it today, working with us, because she's a ridiculously strong organizer and imaginings of those kind of events. So that was special. Anyone wants to share and reflect on that, feel free. But I'll put it back to you, Taylor.
Yeah, definitely. I could do a whole community chat just reminiscing about this event that happened a couple months ago, because I really had a lot of fun with it, and to me it was a really unique balance of something that even as someone who's involved with putting it on, it was both energizing, but it also didn't take everything. Conferences often are inspiring or energizing in like a ideating sense and thinking about the future or reflecting on things that have happened, but I usually leave them very tired in a personal sense, in a real physical sense, and that wasn't really as much the case for me for summer camp. I found myself able to participate in that in a way that I didn't get as much of that kind of tiredness from it. And I do want to, I had a lot of fun. I loved that, my personal hope for that event was that people would see the radio format and then do weird things with it. And like, absolutely everyone lived up to that. That was so great. To, really getting into like editing and submitting these like complete audio shows, and to playing characters that and absolutely not breaking character in some cases, to Pilot at the end of the week literally just doing an RPG session, and that was a lot of fun too, and folks just jumping into that and being game for it. So I'm kind of excited, looking forward to another one of those, to kind of learn again from what Alan, what you incorporated with programming blocks in Azuracast, and seeing what we can do there. And now that we kind of know what that event looked like once, I want to see how we can get more people involved, because it's a weird thing, but I think it's a weird thing a lot of people would appreciate if they can participate.
I would love to do that event again. That was really great.
It's a good point, and it's worth highlighting that at 10 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern time, we'll be doing a basically Reclaims radio special for the holidays. So we'll be doing 2 hours on air and maybe more. People call in recommendations, come in, talk about you want to do karaoke, whatever you want to do. I'll be DJing that. 10 a.m. to 12 is kind of tough for the West Coast, so apologies, folks. I know you're not going to be doing much. It tries to bend over to also the European folks, so we'll kind of balance that, but we'll see. But it's kind of our way of trying to have somewhat of a holiday gathering of our community in a fun, very relaxed radio way. So it'll be on DS 106 Radio from 10 to who knows when. So if you have a chance, definitely tune in. And then if you want to hear a song, let us know. You want to chat with me on the radio, I will give you a StreamYard link and we'll talk and you'll be live. People will hear you all over the world. Right? Okay? Do you understand me? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
We understand the assignment.
We will not do the assignment as assigned.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so trained to try and go the full hour for the community chat, but look, like this is, the week before holidays, many of you are breaking. Feel free. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add. But if not, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and join us. And many of you coming throughout the year, we really appreciate that. And we're going to take January off from our community chat and then come back in February. So, but yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to the support at Reclaim, particularly Jason and Taylor, because 2 years in a row I've let my .ca domain name lapse to the point that I can't easily recover it through Reclaim's portal. I also lost my portal for Reclaim's my password for Reclaim's new portal twice this year. So I work in edtech. This is my competency. But yeah, thank you for not making me feel like an idiot when I was clearly a fucking idiot.
Hey, .ca domains are kind of weird.
I know. Why do I even bother? Why do I bother?
In case anyone didn't know, there are different rules with those. So, yeah.
I had to actually become a permanent resident to even be allowed to have one. I had to supply all my credentials.
There's a little checkbox when you register the domain that's like, prove you're a Canadian citizen or a Canadian company.
We dare you to prove it.
I have this whole hang up on privacy. It's so weird. I mean, come on. It's 2024.
You have to sing "Oh Canada" into the mic and
not blame Canada. Oh, yeah. Canada.
I'm kind of curious, Reclaim people, how's the domain space looking these days? Because I mean, my gut's feeling is a lot of people don't want to bother with it.
You mean with just folks registering domains, making new accounts?
Well, not only registering, but managing and taking on the Reclaim ethos. I just don't know.
Well, I will say, from a domain of one's own perspective, we have new schools coming on. It's not every year. So maybe Jim would be better to answer the question, but from my perspective, it's not we're not seeing folks want to do that. I think it's interesting because I think I see more niche, folks who are we're going to do domain of one's own and we are focused on this part of it. We want to do it in an open way, but we are doing it for this reason. And that's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah, I think also, though, Alan, I mean, to your point at the beginning of the talk, there is a sense of fragmentation and people don't know where to go. And there's a sense. And so, there's always a kind of, again, hey, Manifesto, you should be back on your blog, or hey, Manifesto, you should be doing this, or people hey, you can use your domain in Blue Sky, which is kind of an interesting, you point your domain to Blue Sky, but then Blue Sky is really? Like we're going to go to that trapdoor again. So I just think there's a certain amount of like confusion and uncertainty about like what that all means. And, you know, a lot of the people who we've been working with for now almost 12 years, right? They kind of believe that. So we continue to support them. But I wonder like what faculty and, you know, other students think about the space right now in general. And then there's the whole question of like, you know, I don't know. I haven't spent time like Tom and other folks, Steve, whatever, like really digging into AI. Like I want to go the other way. Like I have zero interest. But I'm also very interested in the idea that what does that mean in terms of like, you know, namespaces online? Like, I don't know what that means at all. And I can't speak to it because I haven't played with it and someone else can because I'm not. But like, that's a very different thing. It seems very personal. It seems very solipsistic in terms of like talking to this thing. And then, you know, I don't know. It seems like a different web in my mind, or even not a web at all. But Pilot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about the AI part, but one thing you mentioning Blue Sky and connecting domains got me thinking about is I was looking at Blue Sky this morning and saw a notice that they're now going to start basically reserving. So if I'm like Pilot Irwin dot Blue Sky dot whatever, and then I connect up my domain to be my handle, they will keep whatever I had previously in reserve so that bots and scammers can't pick it up and pretend to be me now that I've moved on to a new handle, which I thought is pretty neat. And I also wondered like whether that would probably not much, but whether that would make room for people who go, oh, well, that's pretty cool. I would like to have my own domain for lots of reasons, but in part so I can have a cool custom just for me domain handle on Blue Sky. And I don't have to worry about people impersonating me with my previous handle.
Yeah, I personally, the domain stuff, the domain mapping stuff of Blue Sky, no, domain mapping is not the right word, but you know, using your domain as your unique identifier, your handle, is easily my favorite thing about Blue Sky. There's a lot of things I don't like about Blue Sky, but that's not really relevant. I'm kind of interested to see the second step of that because I think it's really cool that they made that choice, right, to use domains for that. But I'm waiting for like the folks who've never owned a domain, aren't familiar with the concept of registering a domain, to get to the next thing that pretty much everyone in this call has already dealt with, which is I have taylorjaden.com, but someone registered taylorjaden.net. What the heck, you know? Not that that's ever happened to me, but like, you know, if someone significantly well known is going to run into that and complain to Blue Sky, and then they get to decide, well, are we just going to do what everyone does with domains? Is it going to get litigated in court the way domains can be, or are we just going to make a content moderation decision? And I suspect they're just going to make a content moderation decision. But I'm kind of waiting to see that play out and I haven't really seen that many people talk about that, but I think it's coming.
I've also heard, not being really on Blue Sky, but Tim has been playing with Blue Sky. And we've been kind of going back and forth about that and discussing the domain, and he's kind of into it, but there's still no real clean way out, right? Like your stuff is there, but there's no real, so there's that whole thing. It's like, God, Facebook too? Really? Like, I'm so not interested in that I don't know, Alan, like I want to believe, like, it's pure in my heart, to quote Jack Kerouac, right? But I don't know how other people feel, and everybody's got to have their own relationship to it, you know, and deal with it. But there's enough people to Taylor's point to make what we do make sense, right? Like, it's not so small that like we still can't do what we do and have fun with it. But as for the kind of the larger machinations of the web and where it's all going, right? I don't know. It's been a shit show for a while now, so it's not that new. But I just can't believe that people still decide to kind of post on Facebook and do all these things that are antithetical to the open web.
Somewhere Blue Sky's got to
do it.
Where's Blue Sky going to pay for all this stuff? Like they got to extract eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, I just put a link in the chat if anyone's curious about Blue Sky and their, I'm going to call it relationship with decentralization. And you're ready for a very technical series of blog posts. I put a link in there, and it's I think the latest or the last one I've read in a conversation happening in the blogosphere between one of the technical creators of ActivityPub, which is what Mastodon uses, and someone from Blue Sky. I'm not actually sure what their involvement is specifically in terms of title, but about, hey, how does that decentralization work? And it's, if you're curious about the technicals, it goes into that. If you're curious about not the technicals, but just what that means, it goes into that too. And it's interesting for sure. It's very, very different in the approaches, in some good and some bad ways, but it's kind of one of those things where until you can take your account and have it hosted on a different Blue Sky, and they do have a limited self-hosting thing, I'll call it. But it doesn't really work the way you'd expect, probably, if you're used to Mastodon. It's not there yet, and I'm waiting to see that happen from them. But
yeah, I mean, I'll say this on the social media front. Stephen brought it up. We're talking about it a little bit. Like, I don't know if I mean, I'm kind of having just enough fun on Mastodon. I'm not searching, and I know kind of search sucks and discovery has its problems, and I could read Alan's post and do what he tells me to and find more. Like, I know that, but like, I kind of like that it's controlled a bit, and that I'm kind of having conversations now, like people like Tom and I, or whatever. Like, I'll talk with people, Darcy Norman, like, it's awesome to be able to chat with him. So like, I don't know how much more I want, right? Like, I think that it has the potential to have a small community, which is what made everything we've done, and royal we, interesting for X amount of years. And I think that whole idea that if it doesn't scale, it's not serious or it's not worthy, I'm totally against that right now. I want small. If 2 people read my thing, it's enough. 3 people. I mean, Brian, I remember you saying like there'll be 15 people who read my blog, but that's enough because those are the people who have that. And like, that's a sentiment I think we've forgotten. And we have gotten so crazy in this sense of influencer and who am I doing and how many follows and this false sense of importance. And, I think that's more disastrous and deleterious to the culture of the web than anything else. And it's our own doing. So I'm just kind of like, if one person follows me, that might even be too many. Nobody should be following me or listening.
I was at Mary Washington over the summer, or honestly September. I don't even remember, but it was celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Digital Knowledge Center. And I was the first class to kind of come up in those in the tutors. And I'm seeing a shift of like with the web tools, but also more DIY tools. Like, they're offering tools on 3D printing, on working with your Cricut, more like audio as well. So like making a podcast and other things like that. So it's growing into more like physical items, but then also in learning like the coding side of like 3D printer software that are open source or paid or anything like that. So I thought that was really interesting, kind of that shift into DIY, but also keeping the digital tools a little bit.
So I'm trying to catch up and make sense of comments here. I'll say I'm also really kind of looking ahead in 2025. I'm interested to see where some of these decentralized things continue going. I as much as I like these things, I'm not particularly optimistic, nor am I super concerned with some of the folks saying like, when is this stuff going to be easy to understand? I'm like, I hope it becomes easier, but I don't know if it'll ever be easy, honestly. But I'm kind of okay with it. I also don't think domain names are easy to understand, but I want people to learn about them. So same, it's kind of that thing. But I'm really interested to see where other tools reach in that space. I moved my blog to Ghost in anticipation of it integrating with some of these things as they kind of work it through ActivityPub. I know WordPress has had a really good ActivityPub plugin for a while, and it's getting new features all the time. And I'm interested to see what that looks like, because still it's kind of a weird experience, and no one really, even folks I talk to who are using it are like, it does this, but not this. And it's kind of strange, but that's exciting to me personally. Probably not exciting for everyone. I think some people it's just frustrating for, but I find it interesting. Mark, you're muted, but I know we have chatted about this, so I'm curious about your thoughts.
Muted on Jitsi. Muted.
Sorry about that. I had to cough earlier. Yeah, I'm going to be following you, Taylor, because I have a Ghost blog also, and I'm trying to figure out how to syndicate the stuff. I want, a big button. Once I slap up a blog post, I just want to hit the button. I want it to go everywhere. That's not going to happen, obviously. But there are these dashboards springing up, so I figure next year we'll be looking at those, Fedica and whatever. See if we can't make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think people got to jump, and it's a good time because we're at the hour. So again, everybody have a great holiday. I hope you get some rest. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch you in 2025 on the blog, because it's blog or die.